What is up, y'all? So today is going to be a little bit different from the videos that I've been making lately. This is a video that I've been needing to make for quite a while because a lot of people have been asking me to share about what I've done for my son with his autism and to kind of go through all of that with y'all. So I decided to make this video and just make it kind of off the cuff. We are filter free today. This is going to be just like basically kind of our story and the things that we've implemented. So I was going to start off by showing you all Bro's drink. As you can see, it's a little windy. I hope it's not too loud. It has kind of a pinkish color to it. I don't normally drink this. It tastes pretty good, actually. It's pretty fruity. I do take the vitamins here and there, but I don't usually drink it like as the same concoction that I make for him, but I'm going to show you all that. So I saw a story, and I was going to do a news article today. I think I'll try to do it tomorrow, about autism and basically supplementing or healing the pancreas and how that can help people with autism to basically break down food better. So I was excited about this article because it is a mainstream news article saying all the things that I've been telling y'all for quite a while. So one of the biggest issues with autism is that it's a nutrient deficiency, or that nutrient deficiencies can worsen the symptoms of autism. So one thing that's super important, collagen. I put collagen in this. This has all these different amino acids. It tells you which ones are essential on here. I also give him actual protein, but the collagen, the best part about it is that it mixes really well with water and it doesn't have any flavor. So I have collagen in this drink right now and you can't even tell, and it doesn't even have like a chunky feel or anything. So I put a little bit of collagen in his drink. The second thing that I do is I put in all of the vitamins. So these are just the boxes. I usually keep them all in the box in the refrigerator, and I cherish these vitamins so much that I didn't want to bring them outside, so I just took them out of the boxes. So this is one that I give to him. It's good for gut health and for micronutrient mineral repletion. This is sea moss. It's a liquid sea moss instead of a gel. We had tried to use the gel before that I bought at a local health food store, and to be honest, we got sick, possibly with a little stomach bug, but it was after having it in the fridge for maybe like a week or 10 days, and after vomiting, I didn't want to buy that one anymore, so I went with my trusted Mary Ruth Organics. And just so y'all know, I'm not sponsored by Mary Ruth Organics. I don't get anything from her. This is just the best way to give him vitamins that I found, because he is so picky when it comes to any type of texture. He won't even do like a gummy or anything. So I put these all in his water and he drinks them right down. I usually, if I add a new vitamin though, I have to start really, really slow. Otherwise he won't like the change in flavor. So I'll start with just a couple of drops and work my way up over time. I actually, though, a lot of these are adult dosing, so I don't even give him the full amount. Like this says 30 drops. I probably give him about 6 or 7 drops. This is zinc. My son, he does not like to eat meat, which is really hard because meat has all of those essential amino acids. And if he did eat meat frequently, I probably wouldn't have to supplement him so much with the amino acids like the vital collagen and everything. But he doesn't. I have such a hard time getting him to even eat chicken nuggets, so I make sure to supplement him all of those amino acids and then different vitamins and stuff like this zinc, especially during the winter months. I started zinc for him back in October when he was sick, and this is my second bottle that I've had to go through. This is about $18 a bottle, but it's well worth it. I'm going to put these back in the bag. This is vitamin C. I give him vitamin C every single day, also in his morning drink, and sometimes I put it in his afternoon drink too when he gets home. Vitamin C is a super important cofactor. It has so many, healing properties and uses throughout the body. There's a ton of different things like neurotransmitters and different enzymes, hormones, all those different things that vitamin C is useful for. And so I make sure that he gets adequate vitamin C by giving him this. This says 60 drops or 2 mLs. I think I give him about half the amount with his morning drink, and it has about 50% daily value. And then he also has a multivitamin that has another, I forget what the percentage daily value is on it, but it's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and someone says it's not cold in yeah, it's not cold. I don't know why someone keeps asking if I'm cold. This is the other thing that I give him, B complex. Super, super, super important because, again, his entire diet is so off. He doesn't eat all of the things that he should. And although we do our best, I know he's missing out on certain nutrients. It's really, really important to get children, especially if they have autism, and they probably likely have like an MTHFR mutation, to get the methylated B vitamin. Also, this is folate asfolinic acid, which is not the same as folic acid, is more natural and more bioavailable. It also has biotin in it, and again, this is a 15-drop serving. He already has methylcobalamin in his other vitamin, the multivitamin that I give him every day, so I only give him about 5 or 6 drops of that. So I put all those in his drink with the multivitamin, mix it up with the collagen. I use one of those little things that goes bzz, bzz, like it stirs it, and he just drinks it down. So I'm having that this morning with him. This vitamin C, I was going to get lipolyzed for myself, which liposomal, which was like 1,000 milligrams, I think, per dose. But instead, I found a huge bottle of this of the same brand, so I went ahead and got that, and I thought we could share because that was up to a 4-month supply. All right, so those are the vitamins and everything that I give him. Everything else that I do with my son, I try to keep him as gluten-free as possible. The one food that he loves, and I should have grabbed his food too, but the one food that he loves that does have gluten in it that I've been cutting out and I've been seeing great changes with is Annie's cheese bunnies. He loves Annie's cheese bunnies. He loves, he would want to eat regular Cheez-Its and everything if I let him, but I don't. And there really just isn't a gluten-free alternative that tastes right. So that has been one that I've been slowly kind of chip away at. And instead he does veggie straws for snacks because unfortunately he doesn't eat, I can't get him to eat just an apple or just nuts or just things like that. So he does eat a lot of processed foods, unfortunately, but we try to make the best choices as possible. He also really likes peanut butter, so that gets him a little bit of protein, some healthy fats, things like that. I'll put honey with the peanut butter too, like a local honey that I have, especially right now because he was coming down with a little bit of cough and a little bit of a stuffy nose. So I make him gluten-free waffles in the morning. They just go in the toaster, put that local honey on there, and then I put some peanut butter over the top, and that has been absolutely kicking this cold, out the way. He hasn't been getting worse or anything, and I think it should be gone in a day or two. So other than diet, this is basically mostly all we ever did. We used to do probiotics also. He had maybe some other supplements and everything. I think vitamin D, that was really hard to give to him though, because the vitamin D was just a straight oil and it's hard to mix with water. So he has a really huge problem taking in oil inside the water. So I tried to, give him those vitamins and everything to get him to get some vitamin D. Another thing that I've bought recently is a fish oil vitamin D supplement that I've tried to put in his water because it just kind of clouds it up. It doesn't actually leave an oily texture, but he has rejected it multiple times. So I'm thinking I might have to mix it with a bite of yogurt or something there. But thankfully, we live in southern Louisiana, so we also just try to spend as much time outside as possible, and that helps with his autism also, because as I've talked about in other videos, just like vitamin C, vitamin D is super important for synthesizing a lot of different hormones and for doing a lot of other work, in the body, synthesizing all kinds of, like hormones, neurotransmitters, things like that. So vitamin D is essential, and it has immune system properties also. It is a little windy out here, so I hope y'all can hear me fine. So moving on, when my son was a baby, he wasn't actually a picky eater. I do want to make this clear. I've talked about it in other videos before, but I wanted to kind of include a little bit of our entire story in this video, and I'm going to upload this to YouTube also. So when he was very small, I have pictures, and my mom even, she had come to visit, so she has a lot of memories of him just eating ground turkey that I cooked and chunks of avocado, and that was when he was under 1 year old, just picking it up, eating it. He still, even when he was a little bit older, he would try to eat like almonds, things like that, but over time he just became so picky. He really didn't start having sensory issues and rejecting foods and everything till he started to show signs of autism when he was probably about, he was probably about 15 months old, 15 to 18 months old, somewhere in there. I remember the first time that we had interviewed babysitters, and she had kind of mentioned to me, she saw some signs of him being on the spectrum, and I really didn't know what I was looking for at that time. I thought kind of like the jerky motions he made were like, just part of a developing child. I really hadn't spent too much time around children. And it wasn't until later, especially after his last round of shots at 2, because I was still totally in denial. So he got all of his shots up until 2, that he started to really have pretty noticeable movements. And I remember a time when he was about 2.5, he wasn't really talking yet. And he was making these movements that almost looks like Parkinson with his hands. And I just decided to take him that day to the pediatrician because I was so worried about him. And the pediatrician was like, well, is he a sensory kid? And I was like dumbfounded because I just thought this is what she's trying to offer me and talk to me about when he's showing signs of like a neurological problem. Now, of course, the only thing they could have offered him would have been an MRI that they would have had to sedate him for. And thank God I had the insight to say no to that, because the giving a child anesthesia, or even an adult, anybody anesthesia, is not just like a harmless intervention. It's very hard on the body. Some elderly people have neurological changes that actually never get better after they have anesthesia. And I definitely saw some research that, or like case studies and things that made me worried, later on, that, children who receive anesthesia that are on the autism spectrum could have the same types of issues detoxing from it that would cause to like increase neurological injury. So at that time, she had just wanted to monitor him, but that was kind of when my wheels started turning, and I realized that, nobody was really going to help us. I couldn't really trust, what they were saying or what they were telling us, and that I had to start doing the work myself. So instead of going to speech therapy, because I just felt like I was feeling a total distrust for the doctors, the staff, the medical staff, the whole establishment at that time, I was feeling very distrustful. And then it was also, I believe that was the beginning of the pandemic. And so the thought of him trying to learn to talk from somebody who's wearing a mask seemed absurd. So I just decided to have nothing to do with everybody and to work with him at home. So here's what I did. I got out our good friend, the Cat in the Hat, and I actually started with 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish, and then the Cat in the Hat, and then the Cat in the Hat comes back. And we would just read these books over and over and over until I would say this was no time for, and eventually he started saying play. And this is No Time for Fun. And he started to finish the rhymes. It started with one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. And that was how he started to learn to talk. So when I wanted him to understand what, and actually, I think I wish I had the other one, because I don't think this is the one. Okay, well, here's a page that would work. So if y'all remember The Cat in the Hat, the actual book, The Cat in the Hat, ours got so loved it fell apart. There's a part where he has a bunch of stuff stacked on him. He has a plate and a boat and the cat and the fish. And so I got all the toys out and I showed him the toys, the toy, the word, the picture, said the word, and I started to teach him what the words were like that. And from that point, he started to learn how to name, this is not just cat. That's not just all cats are not this cat. This is a cat. This is a cat. The same thing with the cake in this part. I got out like a toy cake and, showed him cake, and the word cake and said it. And that was how he learned to name objects and how he learned to start talking as far as just naming words. And that was the first way that he talked for a really, really long time. And let's see. Here's another one that we love. Fox and Socks. He started reading this one to himself later. Like he could just, he can read all these words and everything. And I also had flashcards. So I had, there's like a picture of a house, all kind of different stuff. He learned all those flashcards, and that was all, early 2020. That took a few months, I think, and he was learning all those words, how to name stuff. But he didn't have the ability really to say, I'm hungry, or use any pronouns or anything like that for quite a while. But I was very happy that he was able to produce speech. He was able to produce speech that was easy to understand. Like he actually didn't ever really have any speech impediments or issues with the way that he formed words, and that wasn't hard to teach him at all. And he was able to understand the word, the sound, and the picture and the object. They're all referring to the same thing. So that was how I worked with him. I didn't go to a speech therapist or anything. We didn't go to occupational therapy or anything like that. Did you use sign language? No, I didn't use sign language. This is what I did. I think they use a little bit of sign language in like one daycare that he went to. He never really went to any daycares for super long though, and I never really wanted to use sign language because I just wanted him to learn to talk, and that's just how I thought of it intuitively, and that's how I approach it. So now I'll show you some of the books that my son reads to himself at night. He's actually been reading. We read hundreds of books. I stayed home with him pretty much, constantly. He left daycare. We didn't go back for a really long time to any type of school or anything. And we would just read all day. We turned off the TV. I know this is not probably what parents want to hear, because it was very labor intensive. But we turned off the TV and we just read books. I have hundreds of children's books, so many children's books. And we would just read and read and read all day long, and he would just sit with a pile of books and look through them. And that was when I started to realize he had a really good memory, because sometimes we would have like Fox and Socks, and then we had a shorter one, and he would find like a page, like a picture that was exactly in both books, and then he'd like look at it, run off, go get the other book, and then he would see like the same picture in both books, which was pretty cool. So we still didn't do any therapy or anything like that. He started reading, like I said, to himself about 4 years old. And, by that time he was able just basically to pick up any book and read. We had started to notice when he was about 3 that he could read some words. He would just see something like this and be like, Mary Ruth's, and you'd be like, did he just say that? Or on the radio, when it would said the country music station, he'd be like, country. And it was hard at first to tell, like, can he really read, or has he just memorized a few words? But basically, over time, it was pretty obvious he could read. So I had started to look this up, and this was probably, like I said, when he was about 3, and they called it hyperlexia, and they called it a splinter a splinter skill. And I've had, I think, speech therapist, one or two speech therapists or early childhood, type resource people that tried to call it a splinter skill. And I just stopped them pretty much in their tracks and told them this is not a splinter skill, that is negating what skill he has. This is the actual skill that he does have. So parents, defend your kids if they are early readers, especially because it's so helpful. And I'll explain to y'all in a few minutes why it's so helpful and so important to really hone that skill for them. But I had actually seen this lady, I think her name is like Mary Barbara or something. She's an ABA lady. And on her website, she had talked about basically just arguing with some parents whose child was hyperlexic, as she says, and they wanted to use that skill, to teach him. And she, as an ABA therapist, was like shutting them down and saying, no, we're not working on that right now. Well, how dumb do you have to be? Like, how dumb do you have to be for you to shut down what's actually working for a person instead of working with them? That's what doesn't make any sense about all this, especially when they want to say like, oh, we need to celebrate neurodiversity and stuff. Okay, well, if a person has a skill that can be used to teach them other things, celebrating that is by using that skill, not by shutting it down and wanting to teach them in the way that you learn. So thumbs down, Mary Barbara, or whatever your name is. You aren't helpful, and I'm glad because of people like her stories, I never wanted to send my son to ABA therapy. Also, very thankful to some of the adults who had been through ABA therapy when they were young, and they talked about how awful it was for them as they got older and how they wish they had never done ABA therapy. And so I never wanted to do ABA therapy. But I still didn't understand, like in those early days, I still didn't understand how biological autism was, because it was such a progression for me to understand the entire puzzle and how autism is painted as a behavioral or a psychological diagnosis, but it's actually a biological diagnosis. And when I say that, I don't mean it's genetic, or even if it has gene type components, that it's heritable, if that makes sense. People with autism, they do have a biological issue going on that can heal. So a lot of times they have neuroinflammation, then they have lack of nutrients that they need to form neurotransmitters, lack of nutrients that they need to balance their hormones correctly. And they end up with not just one issue, but an entire host of issues, basically. So if you can try to heal the body, then you can heal the mind so that that person can use it as effectively as possible. Yeah, somebody said heavy metals. Definitely things like heavy metals, neuroinflammation, even just the vitamin deficiencies I'm talking about, vitamin C, vitamin D, some of these vitamins help a person to actually detox heavy metals. Heavy metals are, within all of us. We come in contact with them all the time. But if we don't have the building blocks that we need, then we end up with a negative feedback loop, basically a bad feedback loop of not having what you need. And then the heavy metals start to build up. And then you have more sensitivity to like textures, things like that. And then suddenly you're taking in even less vitamin C. And all of a sudden there you are having worsening autism symptoms. So when it comes to things like regression and stuff, I would say obviously for us not doing any more shots. We skipped those 4 to 6 year old shots. My son's doing fantastic, thank God. But also we try to be really careful about what he eats and making sure he's always getting supplemented his vitamins and everything. And okay, so moving on. Potty training was a thing for us. I'm not going to talk too much about that because it's personal, to him, but I liked this book. It's called Potty, and I bought him this when he was 1 or 2 years old. He actually, to be honest, he started potty training right at 18 months, and he was getting it, and then it was like, that was like a regression or something where he then didn't potty train until a little bit, later, which I won't say exactly when, because again, that's personal. But he is fully potty trained and in school and everything now, and he does great with that. But this is just a little book that was kind of fun. See, it has a dog and a cat, and they're using their potties, And even after my son was potty trained, he would go back to this book and reread it. And I think it meant something new to him now that he was doing it himself. So we've had this book for a really long time, and it still makes it off the shelf once in a while, and we read it together. Let's see. So other things that I noticed with my son was when he was about 3 years old, he started drawing really, really like photographic type, not photograph with like all the details, you know, as far as like sketching or whatever, but he would draw representations of like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and he would put so many details in it for somebody who had just seen it like on TV. So he would draw like the correct amount of, you know, fence posts and things like that, which I thought was really fun. And he would do that with sidewalk chalk, and he would draw, maybe he doesn't really have any drawings in this book yet, but he started drawing, and he would draw faces and things with a lot of detail. Oh, here's a good one. And drawing has been a really, really big thing for him ever since then. I like him to draw the old-fashioned way. So we have 1 million markers, and we've gone through 1 billion markers ever since he was little. We have these tiny markers now as we're trying to work a little bit on his grip and his penmanship, but he drew me this cute Christmas tree. It looks like our Christmas tree the other day. This is actually not like a typical drawing for Bro, if that makes sense. He usually does a lot more detail, but I thought this representation was super cute. My son can do this too. Crazy how they can really hone in on these skills. Yeah, that part is pretty fun. But now it's almost like his drawings, I don't know if he uses his brain differently, but I wish I had some of his old drawings. It's almost like his drawings are different now than they were like so copy-ish before. But, oh, here we've got another one. We were watching Nemo. He drew us a little Nemo. So that was cute. So we always work on drawing. At his dad's house, once he was about 4, he did start using a tablet, but he's never used a tablet in my house. And we don't do anything, you know, we don't even actually have the internet. So we mostly try to play outside. He does have a few movies that he likes to watch and everything now, but we did go an entire year screen-free back in the beginning. And he used to be very, very sensitive to screens and EMFs, and he still is very sensitive to being overstimulated by screens. So we try to keep like even the movies and stuff to kind of somewhat a minimum. Special interest, people say like children with autism have special interests. Bro is like me, you know, I guess this is where people would say like, if they wanted to say autism is genetic and, you know, you're neurodiverse too, which I don't think of it like that. I'm sorry. I think what happened to my son was, you know, neurological in nature, and it came from toxins and the vaccines, and that, you know, he's detoxing and now he's getting over the kind of disabling type of symptoms. But our personalities, yeah, we're both one to like hone in on something. So for a while with him, it was cars. We're kind of getting out of the car phase, but we have 1 million cars at our house. And I love all the little cars. They're just too cute, so I'm going to save them forever. Well, we'll see. Maybe not forever, but I probably have 20 Lightning McQueens. Okay, so the other thing that we've done is I've always tried to push him to have skills beyond his age and the expectation. And so we've always been doing books like this. We've always been doing like Brain Quest workbooks. Let's see, he has a few things. This one we need to work on more. It doesn't look filled out. But basically, see, he'll do the numbers and do the little math here. We're doing like 12 minus 4. So he counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so 12 minus 4 is 8. But I've also worked with him to do math like this by just drawing the little bubbles below, and we'll count on our fingers. And then we'll also use calculators because, again, with him, if I can show him multiple ways, that's going to help him as much as possible. So you could even use like objects or something. And so let's see, somebody says, does he enjoy music and instruments? He does have a little piano he likes to play on and everything. The only problem is I'm not musical at all, so I don't really know how to teach him. And we're still working on his his ability to focus on a task for more than a few minutes, and so would it really make sense to get him lessons or anything right now? So when it comes to stuff like this, the math, he can learn it pretty easily, but we limit how much time we spend on it, because once he gets bored, we just move on. But see, you can see here, I was not with him when he did this. He did this just on his own. There's 4 minus 3, that's 1. So, 4 plus 3, that's 7. We've started to work on that. This one, 5 plus 2, that's 7. So he counted them, and then he did the addition there. So I taught him to do that by just writing the numbers and doing little bubbles. And like I said, he's 6 years old, and so even his teachers were telling me the other day that he was doing a first or second grade sheet, and they were surprised like he could do all the stuff. So here's another one. This one doesn't even have bubbles. Like 6 plus 1 is 7. He did this without me. 2 plus 3 is 5. He did this without me. So this is what your children with autism are capable of learning if you help them and you show them in the way that they like to learn things, and you make it make sense, and you don't let people tell you that just because your child doesn't speak well or they have other types of focus issues or things that they can't do stuff like this. So look, 2 plus 4 is 6. He got every single one right. And this is, just so y'all know, he probably did this when he was 5. This has been in the shelf, for a while. He probably did this summer. I haven't seen this book out for a while. And he did those without, look, there wasn't even, here's another one. So this one he did minus, and I don't think I was even here with him doing it. 5 minus 2, 3. So, and some of them, like I said, he did without it even having a picture to count. So he worked on money. So don't ever let people tell you that your child with autism can't learn absolutely, everything they need to learn. Some concepts are going to be hard, especially if they take a lot of language. It's nice, teaching him these young kid things because they don't take a lot of language. I do get a little concerned about, I was for a while getting a little concerned about some of the higher level math being hard, just because it can take more language and like theoretical thoughts, but his language is starting to improve. So let me explain that really quick. We're going to come back over here to Pete the cat. And so my son will read these books. He reads for about an hour every single night by himself. I just put him in his bed. I give him like his second little drink, which again, I don't do melatonin. I don't do anything like that. It'll either have some vitamins or just by that time of night be plain water. And he will read these books to himself. This one's actually very simple. He can read a much more complicated book than this, but he'll read it. Pete wakes up. He swings his legs over the bed. Brr, the floor is cold. Oh no, that is not groovy. So he will read this, and then he'll understand how to make a sentence better. So what was hard for my son for a long time was to use pronouns or to construct a sentence and to tell you kind of like, what did I do for, what did you do today? Or what do you want to do today? Things like that. Or, basically just see the mom saying time for school, get your bag. He would have had a lot of trouble. Like he could say bag and plate and all that stuff, but to build an entire sentence around it was really hard for him. And it wasn't something that he just picked up by me trying to talk slower and speak to him. It was something that he's picked up by reading books to himself and thinking about it and interpreting them or wanting to understand the story better. So I highly recommend reading for your children with autism more than just plain speech therapy. And of course, somebody can be like, you're not an expert. You don't know speech therapists, this is not what they're saying or whatever. They might say this, but I don't care, so I'm just going to tell you anyways, straight up. My son, I took him to the speech therapist when he was already talking well, because I didn't want them to get him on one of those speaking iPads. Like, I waited till I knew he could talk and say enough words and everything, so he must have been in the 4s, late 3s maybe. And the speech therapist talked at him so fast at such a rate that he couldn't even process it, and he would only last about 15 minutes with her. and he couldn't really cope back to like speak back with her. So maybe that works for a neurotypical kid or certain kids with autism that are maybe just behind on their language or something. But for him, that didn't work. He needs the pictures and everything. So I know that some schools do a lot more stuff like this, because they actually, before my son started school, they made him a little book with his own picture, and it talked about the school and how he was going to be starting school, and that was actually really helpful for him. But as far as just plain speech therapy where someone's just talking at him, that has not seemed to be helpful until this year, once he started school, and he has like very, very short speech therapy sessions with the speech therapist at school. And since he is, kind of changed a lot and been able to use a lot more language and words, it's a little bit more helpful. But back then it was very hard for him. But this has helped him a lot. So he'll just read a story and then he'll understand. Or the other thing that we would do is read a story and then, oh, what color's peach shirt? Green stripes. I'm like, oh, okay. Who's wearing a yellow dress? And he'd be like, oh, Callie. And we would do stuff like that. Or let's count how many butterflies there are. And those things were really helpful for him. So I can't say enough about reading. You should definitely encourage your child to read if they have autism or if they don't, because it's a way for them to be able to, my son can teach himself a lot of stuff. Like these Brain Quest books that he has, he'll read the directions to himself and then do the activity. So he teaches himself. He doesn't need me. And that alone, and he can work on language without another person. That alone is so empowering for him. So I highly recommend teach your child with autism to read. Don't let anyone downplay it as a splinter skill. It's a useful skill where they are going to use that in order to teach themselves more and empower themselves without relying on other people. Because to me, unlike all the other, there's like a million autism moms out here that are just waving the autism acceptance flag. And I am a realistic person. I like to say that I'm practical, and it's not practical to say I'm going to put my son out into the world disadvantaged and not able to do the things that other people can do. So in my practicality, getting him up to speed to be able to have all the skills that he can is my job. It's my duty, not to tell the rest of the world to accept him, because I want him to be, and not that people shouldn't accept him, but my main focus is going to be for him to be able to take care of himself, do all the things other people can do to the best of my ability. And that's what I'm going to fight for and work on every single day, not just to get hugs, internet hugs from strangers. So making him as autonomous as possible. That's always my job, my goal, my focus, and for him not to rely on things. We obviously do take vitamins and stuff like that, but as far as like medications, things that he has to have, no, we try not to, we actually don't do anything like that. When it comes to, the supplements, all those different things, I try to keep them very basic, nothing crazy. And my goal is always, to try to get him to like reincorporate more different foods so that he's just actually eating the foods that he needs to in variety, so that he doesn't even need all the supplements anymore at some point. Also, I work with him to get enough exercise, because that calms his mood and helps him to, self-regulate a lot better. And especially if he has to go somewhere where he needs to be better behaved, I'm going to want him to get some exercise first. So doing things like taking him to the track to go for a little run on the obstacle course. I'll do stuff like that with him. Play outside, ride his bike around the property. We'll even run sprints in the back sometimes. Those things are really, really helpful for him. A lot of people know this, and maybe some people don't, but underlying mitochondrial dysfunction or disorders goes hand in hand with autism almost all of the time. So it's actually important to understand that the number one best treatment for mitochondrial dysfunction is actually exercise. And so that's why exercise is so essential, because it's going to be, creating more mitochondria, making mitochondria more efficient and helping them to repair. So for my son, to get him exercise is actually helping to heal his body also, which, like I've said a ton of times, is the ultimate goal. So we're going to heal the body so that he can better utilize his mind in the way that he wants and needs to. So that is basically all I have to say today. My son's 6 years old. He just turned 6 years old a couple of months ago. He's doing fantastic. He's finally at the point where I can verbally teach him sentences. So he'll say something and I'll say, ask me in a full sentence, say it like this, because maybe he asked me with just one or two words. And so he'll repeat the sentence back to me. And then later, instead of, just trying to ask me with one or two words, he'll ask me with an entire sentence, a different unique sentence, which is even more exciting and important, because a lot of people with autism, a lot of parents of children with autism know that there is even a point when your child is just scripting language. And my son did this a lot. It is actually a helpful step, but thankfully he didn't just to stay in that phase of just repeating a TV show or repeating something that he's heard. Now he, does his best to construct an independent sentence and answer questions in a unique way. And he's really, really making headway there. So I'm very proud of him. It's been a long journey. It's been the most gratifying journey that I can ever explain to y'all. It felt sometimes like going up a mountain that maybe had no end in sight. There was a lot of fear involved, but there was also a lot of faith. So I'm going to wrap it up by saying this. I know I made a video on that pastor that everyone was angry at because he talked about the prayer aspect of autism and, how he felt like autism is a demonic oppression and that God can heal autism. And I actually think that that's really true. So in addition to all the other things that I did, my son and his autism took me on a path of discovery to understand a lot of the issues in the world that are really from a demonic standpoint or a demonic place. A lot of people think they're doing good, but they're furthering an evil agenda that's harming a lot of people. And I used to be one of them because I used to work in healthcare and I used to think everyone needs all the vaccines. And then I used to think, not that everyone needs all the medications, because I always kind of questioned that, but I was always just like a cog in the wheel for years and years, not understanding how many times people can heal their bodies. So he helped me on, the path of discovery to become a better person, to become a more positive force in the world where I can help other people to understand what they actually need to do. And also I could step out of fear, because here's the real thing. When my son was born, I was scared all the time, listening to the doctors. Oh, I have to be scared of this. Oh, I have to be scared of that. Oh, I need to be scared and vaccinate him. Well, that fear of me thinking he needed all those shots and, all of that type of stuff was why what happened to him happened to him. And only a return to faith could help him to heal. So we used faith. I didn't run straight back to the doctor, to say, doctor. And that's why I don't subscribe to when people say, oh, there's a new medicine for autism. I'm like, that's great. We don't want any more medicine. Medicine got us here. It's not going to get us out. Faith is going to get us out. Faith, using just regular, vitamins made from, natural sources, water, good food, being outside, all of those things are going to help to heal his body. That's a return to faith and a return to God's design. But I'll tell you, there was a time, not this past summer, this summer before, so my son would have been 4 years old, and the reading was going good, all that was going good, but he was waking up, I guess people call these night terrors, and he would not seem like he was awake, just repeating stuff and thrashing and just, very scary because of everything else he was dealing with, just the thought all the time of is this a regression? Is this the way he's going to be now? And I just remember, just praying with him when he was in one of those moments, just praying with him that he would, be healed, and just, trying to send out that healing type of energy that I felt like God was calling me to, I don't know if it would be like transfer or whatever, but like giving him that healing energy and that belief and like trying to like translate it to him basically. And then I felt called to pray, you know, a few other times, certain locations and everything like that. And that, after I did that, I think that really did start to turn the corner for us. Like things started to really change for him. And of course, I'm not going to say like overnight he was just healed like that. I don't believe, you know, that that's always the way that God's going to work. I don't also think that God wanted my son to heal super fast, because I think he had a lot that he wanted to use me and my son in our story for. And I think my son, you know, the way he is going to be for a reason. He is a really incredible person. He's so, you know, smart and resilient in ways that most 6-year-olds aren't, and in ways that most adults aren't. And so I really, you know, like cherish him and the journey that he's been through, and just like what a wonderful spirit and what a wonderful, you know, strong little person he is, and how just the fact that he just did that book and stuff by himself is just incredible to me. So I do think that we're still in the midst of our healing journey. I can only hope that my son will grow up to have the perspective to be able to help others, you know, with autism, especially ones that suffer a more profound, you know, disability and need advocates that actually understand where he's been, because there are a lot of people out there who openly admit that they never had any real dysfunction when they were a child. They weren't really disabled. They never spent time in special education. No one ever really thought there was anything, you know, off about them, and yet they just felt different, you know, and that they're somehow a representation of autism, and that they can represent these people that have like true disabilities. And I just think that that's ridiculous. But for my son, somebody like him who struggled so hard to learn everything, and he knows, because he's been through all the same things that a lot of those people have, except for basically ABA therapy, just because I decided not to do it, that he could grow up to be a real advocate. And I don't know if that's something that he's going to want to do, or if that's going to be, you know, on his heart or within his abilities. But I do like to think that if that's possible, that maybe that will make a lot more sense, you know, for why he's been in the situation he's been in. But today I'm just thankful he's doing great. He's happy. His body's healthy. His, you know, inflammation seems to be getting so much better, and he's learning new skills all the time. Let's see. So you actually have his best interest in mind. Yeah, and that's the hard thing about, you know, the medical system, is it doesn't even really necessarily have time to care about every individual. And I say this a lot about speech therapy, and it's not to dog speech therapists, but the speech therapist wouldn't have cared if he learned to talk. They get paid just the same, and they are just as highly valued as a speech therapist, whether or not they teach him to talk or they give him one of those iPad ACC devices to talk on. So I didn't trust them, because the stakes for them were not that high. Like, they didn't actually have to teach him to talk in order to get paid, do their job, and keep credibility. But for me and for my son, if he never learned to talk, that would have been a lifelong disadvantage, you know, for him. It would have been very hard for me to take care of him. And so I didn't trust them. I only trusted myself. And that's one of those things. I don't know if y'all have read the book Relentless, and then I am going to really wrap this up, but by Tim Grover. He talks about cleaners and closers, and, you know, this is one of those situations where you're like, this is hard, but then you start to gain such a new level of credibility with yourself when you see like how much you can really help them, how much you can put your mind to something and actually see it happen and see things get better, even when other people are telling you like, oh, you can't handle it, or oh, it's not going to get better, or you can't fix everything. And yet you see yourself doing all the things that need to be done, you know, to help them and to make it happen, because you have no other option. So it's just been a really exciting journey for us, which started out with a lot of fear, very scary, and now it's been a lot of triumph, and I just know we're going to be just fine. So thank you all so much, and I hope that y'all have a fantastic day. If you're watching this over on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment, follow me on Instagram, send me a message. Let me know what you've tried with your child that has either worked or not worked, and what other, aspects of autism you would like to talk about in the future. But I will be back tomorrow, and I will probably share a couple of news articles then. Hope you all have a fantastic day.